Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for September 19th, 2019, recorded around 3:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hurricane Humberto brought some pretty significant impacts to Bermuda last night and now has passed well to the north of the islands, which has left some damage in the wake there, but also mainly now Bermuda getting in on some of the swell action here on the southern side of Hurricane Humberto. Humberto brought a maximum gust wind of about 132 miles per hour, so quite intense wind there. And now this is continuing to head off towards the northeast here, and then eventually bank further off to the north and east, and eventually straight east here, and dissipating really by this weekend. This is expected to become post-tropical later this evening, and will pose no substantial threat to any of the Canadian Maritimes here, besides maybe some gusty winds here across some of the islands. Also some heavy rainfall certainly could be extending out from the center, but the center is expected to pass pretty far away from those regions to bring no significant consequential impacts to that region. However, still across the eastern seaboard of the United States and the East Coast and even Florida and Bermuda now are getting in on some of those large swell actions that are still radiating outwards. This storm actually produced a pretty large swell event, and that is continuing to ripple across all the way over to the eastern coast of the United States. So high tide, or not high tide, but high surf, rip currents, things like that can and has killed people. So we just kind of want to reemphasize that the large swell action and the rip current action is going to be something to keep in mind. You can kind of keep a mind on there, and you have to watch those. Those can and have killed people. Looking at the zoomed out satellite here, this is from tropicaltidbits.com, you can certainly see where our center of circulation is, somewhere around here. Very reminiscent of how Dorian was when it was passing up through here not too long ago. So this is mainly getting stretched out here by the overall trough of low pressure and the jet stream. This is kind of carrying all the effects sort of downstream, and there's no really significant action here on the back side of it, but there is some gusty winds. You can sort of see some of the cirrus clouds impacting portions of the Canadian Maritimes there. Newfoundland, portions of those regions are seeing some of the high-level cirrus clouds that are affected by or that are stemming from Hurricane Humberto. So the main impacts will just be some gusty winds, but this is mainly expected to sort of stay well away from this region here over the coming days. So no substantial impacts for those regions. On the other hand, we do have Hurricane Jerry, which has intensified at a rather decent pace today, up to about 85 miles per hour now, the 2 o'clock intermittent advisory. We do have tropical storm watches for most of the northern Leeward Islands here, and more watches could be issued later today, or warnings. But at this current time, on the 3-day cone here, this is expected to pass pretty far to the north, but bring some impacts. This is not a very large storm system, and we'll take a look at that here in a minute. And then eventually some sort of weakening does seem possible in this region. However, that largely depends on how strong Jerry is within this region between today and tonight and heading into the day tomorrow. That largely is going to be based on how well is the inner core established, how deep is that convection around the center, and how strong is that shear that is expected to increase. And if this does tend to be weaker, again, this will take a path more to the north and eventually kind of curve out here. And Bermuda, once again, is in that 5-day cone. So Bermuda just went through part of Hurricane Humberto. Now you could be having to deal with another hurricane that will be tending to be much closer at this point in time. But a lot of that stems from how strong or weak it is in this region. By and large, tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening and on the day Saturday, how strong or weak is it going to be here? Some of the some of these stronger EPS models have tended, or the EPS ensembles have gotten us a little bit further west on the western edge of this cone, and we're not going to speculate any past there. But it is interesting to note that the stronger the system is, here by days, really by tomorrow and Saturday, by, days 2 and 3, that is going to have an impact on where the system is by, Saturday and Sunday. Where is the system going to be? Is it going to lie on the western edge, or is it going to lie on the northern edge, or kind of right down the middle? So far, the Hurricane Center has tended a little bit more with the stronger envelope, having it a little bit more west. So again, just because the Turks and Caicos aren't in the cone at all, you do have to continue to monitor for the potential impacts, because depending on how far west this gets and how strong it gets, that could have some impact. So again, we're continuing to monitor that here. Taking a look at the IR satellite loop here, you can definitely see that we have a rather asymmetric look. This is not symmetrical like we've seen in the past couple of days, and that has not hindered intensification at all today, though. If you look at the recon pass from the recon that was in there a couple of hours ago, the pressure is down to 983 millibars and does support near Category 2 flight level winds. So for that reason, the Hurricane Center blended with about an 85 mile per hour hurricane at this point, or 75 knots. So you can certainly see that that has its own implications to where exactly the system is in the long term. You can see the long-term motion is off towards the north and east, or the north and west right now. But over time, that is going to have some impacts on exactly how strong this is. Again, rather asymmetrical, but that is not hindering intensification at this current moment. Take a look here at the visible satellite loop, and you can certainly see that we've had a rather asymmetrical look throughout the day today, and that has continued. Again, your deeper convection here is really on the eastern side and over near the center, but you can see over here towards the western edge, if I can draw correctly, over towards the western edge here, we have largely no convection across this region, and that is going to potentially hinder some development. Again, mainly what we're looking for is when exactly does the inner core, the eye wall per se, start to diminish. And when that happens is going to be when we start to see Jerry begin to ultimately weaken as a result of that region. So there is a lot of potential here for this thing to actually weaken during the next couple of days while it moves off towards the west-northwest here. Once this really gets past here, the northern leeward islands, this could actually weaken just a bit, but that is not all set in stone. If we go to the wider shot here, again from tropicaltidbits.com, you can certainly see that we do have a lot of that drier air on this side. Here's also another tropical disturbance out here. We'll touch on that here in just a minute. But you can see a largely no convection, dry air, and that shear is only going to be increasing, and that dry air is certainly also going to be increasing here over the next few days. The only outflow to speak of right now is really on the southern side here. On the southern side, we have some outflow. But again, so far, we have not seen any hindered strengthening of the system, so that's going to be interesting to watch. The close-up shot here, you can certainly see this is from the RAMMB NOAA site here. The center is right about in here, and it is on the northwestern edge of this deeper convection. So certainly it is still enveloped within that deeper convection, but you can see what's lurking out ahead of this is that dry air. Now the question is, how much dry air does this ingest, and how much shear does this actually impact the system? And depending on that is going to really depend on the core strength. If the core can tighten up and become a little bit more symmetrical and close off, because currently we have the southwestern side is open. If this can close off, this can undergo further intensification really, but so far we've had that intensification pretty steady throughout the day and deepening throughout the day. We are also continuing to monitor Tropical Depression Imelda, which has brought significant rainfall to portions of southern Texas. Significant, life-threatening, deadly rainfall event is only continuing for those regions, which is something we don't want to see. Luckily, we are not seeing this deeper convective region that we were seeing earlier, but still very heavy rainfall is setting up across this region with another training band back here. And this is just bad. And this is setting the way for Jerry to, or not Jerry, but Imelda to become the 7th or 6th wettest tropical storm within the U.S. history. So that has significant implications down here. So again, a life-threatening rainfall event is ongoing across there. We also have several more tropical disturbances here. We have one wave here with a 10% over the next 5 days, mainly confined here into the southern Caribbean. We also have another disturbance with a 30% chance over the next 5 days, mainly going down towards the southern Windward Islands here, Trinidad, Tobago, Grenada, Barbados, and we also have another wave with a 40% chance of development here over the next 5 days back near Africa and the Cabo Verde Islands. So a lot to watch here over the coming days. Again, I'll have another video discussion out by 5 o'clock going over the 5 o'clock advisory on Hurricane Jerry, Hurricane Humberto, which is soon to be post-tropical, and the rest of the tropical Atlantic as we continue to see things fire up. Hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. I will be back at 5.